until I was 10 years old. And that's when my life changed. Well, I have an uncle. He's still my uncle. It's my mom's brother. And so he was 14 probably at the time. So in 1984, he had a cassette tape and he said, listen to this. And I still remember it was Cover Me. And it like a shot right through my heart. It was that guitar that just, it hit me. And like Bruce says, you don't really get into the lyrics. It's first the music. And from then on, at a young age of 10, that was it. I wanted to know, everything about that album in particular. And Bruce had just come, but I didn't know, but he had just come in 84 to CNE. I think in the same month that Born in the USA was dropped. So I spent a year just destroying this album and listening to it and reading the lyrics and looking at that picture of him against that tree.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. I have a new friend. Joe and I were just talking a few minutes before we hit record. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you look all comfortable in your kitchen and just like you're ready just to pull up a nice beverage and just talk a little music.
Yeah, I'm pumped. The kids are in bed, so that's kind of nice. And it's nice to have an adult conversation every once in a while.
Absolutely.
So I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Where are you calling us from?
I'm from St. Catharines, Ontario. So Southern Ontario. So not too far from Niagara Falls, which most of your listeners would probably know. And so anytime Bruce would come to Buffalo, I'd try to hit him up there. So it's not very far away. And my wife likes to hit the border there for some shopping. And
nice.
I'm about an hour away from Toronto, just up the Queen Elizabeth Way. So that's where I'm situated, really in Southern Ontario. It's a great place to live.
Yeah, I've told the Canadian story before, but a couple of companies ago, I worked where we had a small little office in Winnipeg, Canada, and it was right after like where you guys had the Olympics out in the West, and all this beautiful snow. And, I fly into Winnipeg and it's just flat. It's just flat and it's cold. And there was this, there was a big sign, snow dump, or I forgot what word they called. And you're, as someone who's from Texas, I'm picturing, there'll be this mound of snow and it's this big pound of dirt, because of all the salt and all this stuff on there. And then when I saw a Dairy Queen, I went, okay, this is not Canada. But I did discover Tim Hortons and the greatness of Tim Hortons. So
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. You're honorary Canadian now.
There we go. Absolutely. So where'd you grow up in, Joe? What part of, I assume Canada?
Yeah. Like I said, basically a town called St. Catharines. I was born and raised there. So, you're kind of like I said, you're right, kind of in between. You're not far from the falls and you're not far from Toronto. And I'm currently in a town called Grimsby, which really isn't far from St. Catharines where I grew up. It's about 15 minutes away. So I like to go back to St. Catharines, visit my mom there and get a good meal in every once in a while. It's where I am. And I'm a teacher, elementary school teacher. I've been doing that for 20 some odd years.
What grade?
Well, I've really done everything from 3 to 8, but currently grade 6.
Okay.
Yeah. So, father of 3, three boys who are 9, 6, and 3 years old, and I'm married.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's living the dream, as they say.
Yeah. Why did you, what made you want to become a teacher?
Um, well, it got started pretty early when I was probably in a 10th grade. I just enjoyed working with kids. I enjoyed going back to my elementary school and in the sports realm anyway.
Hmm.
Like going back, I really enjoyed being in the gym. Really, I was a jock who enjoyed being in the gym and then teaching kids, whether it was basketball or soccer, whatever it might be. And that's kind of where the path took me. And I actually went to Duval College in Buffalo and
Okay.
studied there after post grad. I went to Brock University in for my undergrad in St. Catharines, and
Okay.
yeah, and then yeah, became a teacher.
Did, do you teach multiple subjects? Or you, I never can remember, depending on the school district, right? Like, when do you start going to, like, I remember the transition where, um, it was in junior high where you started getting different teachers, but the one like I went to, you stayed in the classroom and the teacher moved versus you having to move. I guess they were like, didn't want try to get fifth graders organized enough to change classes.
Yeah, but you're right. It does depend on the board or the district, but for the most part, in the Niagara Catholic School Board that I'm in, you teach every subject except for French. That's our second language. So you teach every subject, and the kids really don't move. So then you're with them for the entire day, and so you're a jack of all trades, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Had you, were you raised Catholic?
yes,
And so you wanted to teach in a Catholic school?
yeah, yeah. It was just kind of part of you. So
Yeah.
it was just a natural kind of transition. So
So I'll tell this story on me. Um, my son went to Catholic school first through eighth grade, and then when it came time for high school, Jesuit was just way too expensive, and he was not very strong academically. Um, I'm the exception. Most parents like brag about their kids, and I still do brag about Chris. I mean, there is a lot of things that I'm really proud about him, but during junior high, and I mean, like, when he graduated high school, he said, you said I couldn't get through high school without reading a book, and guess what, I did. So and to give fair credit, after he got his degree in college, he made the joke that, if you read the book, the course is a lot easier to pass.
no shit, no
Yeah,
shit.
no shit. Yeah, in
Yeah.
fact, and my he was a Cub Scout, and my fellow Cub Scout leader, um, Miss Renee, was there for his college graduation, and she's like, "Yes, Chris," because she's a librarian. She's like,
Oh,
"Yes,
okay.
it is."
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, but so they were talking to Chris, some friends or something, and they were talking about, like, this family. We're talking about that, they liked going to 5 o'clock mass, because that way you could go out, you've got your obligation, and you got the dinner. And then
Yeah.
others like, no, 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 they really like the early Sunday morning mass, so you can get that before the NFL. Or, other people know, I like the 11 or noon mass, because it's kind of traditional, Sunday, and then you go
Yeah.
out to lunch. And so they they looked at Chris and said, when do you go to mass? Tuesdays. Because Lynn and I just were horrible. We would never go to mass on the weekend.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So growing up, what kind of music did your family listen to? Were they musical?
Well, yes and no. I have immigrant parents.
Okay.
So my dad came over from Italy, maybe he was about 19 or 20 years old. So the music that came from him that I would listen to would be like old world folk kind of
Okay.
music. Right. And that music I heard throughout the house, or whether it was the weddings or baptisms, those kinds of things. His music was for dancing and sort of having fun.
Yeah.
And my mother, who also is an immigrant, but she came over pretty early. She was like 3 years old. So she actually went to high school in the fall. So she's one of the like a mom that doesn't have the typical Italian accent. And I would just listen to music maybe if we were in the car. And nothing really in particular. She had, I remember, 3 albums in this giant stereo that we had. So it was either my choice was Kenny Rogers, The Gambler.
Okay.
I had the Police, Synchronicity.
Okay.
And we had Michael Jackson's Thriller.
All right.
Yeah. And then the last one I remember was we had an 8-track of Jim Croce's, I think, Time in a Bottle.
Okay.
And that was it. And we just would play those, but there was no one was really musical, or no one really played like a particular instrument or introduced me to anything in particular.
Okay.
Until I was 10 years old. And that's when my life changed. Well, I have an uncle. He's still my uncle. It's my mom's brother. And so he was 14 probably at the time. So in 1984, he had a cassette tape and he said, "Listen to this." And I still remember it was Cover Me. And it like a shot right through my heart. It was that guitar that just, it hit me. And like Bruce says, you don't really get into the lyrics. It's first the music. And from then on, at a young age of 10, that was it. I wanted to know, everything about that album in particular. And Bruce had just come, but I didn't know, but he had just come in 84 to CNE. I think in the same month that Born USA was dropped. So I spent a year just destroying this album and listening to it and reading the lyrics and looking at that picture of him against that tree in front of that. I think that's his home, right?
Yeah, I
on
do,
South Street.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember he was coming in 85, and it was in August, and it was my birthday's in August. So I begged my mother. I said, "Mom, like, come on, like someone has to take me or whatever." Right. Sad story. Nobody took me.
Oh no.
Yeah, nobody took him. My uncle did go. He had someone take him, at 14, but that was it. From then on, I just became a student. Like I wanted to know everything. So yeah, that was the start.
That's great.
Yeah.
Can you articulate what about it spoke to you, Joe?
I don't know, from an early age, and I still don't know why. I maybe I had an emotional intelligence, but for some reason, like I could feel like those characters. Like I could feel Joe's pain in Downbound Train, and or the kid that was on the father's lap in My Hometown. And then there was the rockers. I mean, who didn't dress up as Bruce Springsteen for Halloween and from 84 to 86,
right?
So, and I did that, and people thought I was Willie Nelson, I remember, but I was the only kid, walking around with this headband. But
that's funny. That's very funny.
And I still have the pictures, like the Halloween pictures, like
okay.
But yeah, it was something about that. And then
well, I'm going to ask you for a picture to send with the podcast. So if you can find that one, scan it and send it to me, and that's what it'll be.
I'll do my best to do that.
Okay, that's
as
great.
Embarrassing it'll be. Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, I won't force you if you don't want
Yeah.
to. That's. I think everyone will love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you didn't get to go.
No.
When did you get to go to your first show?
Well, I didn't get to go till 92.
Okay.
So I know Bruce didn't come to Toronto for the Tunnel of Love, and I listened to the shit out of that album. I mean, I still love, and I was only 13, and that same uncle, he bought the Tunnel of Love tape, and we played the hell out of that. And then Bruce came in 88 for the I think it was the Amnesty, and he came to Maple Leaf Gardens, and I don't even recall why I didn't go, or I just kind of missed that. And then in 92, I was kind of finally old enough to go, and I went to the Sky Dome, and I saw him on a Thursday, then the Friday. So I went to both concerts, and unfortunately, he was with that other band.
Yes.
And I mean, it was still spectacular,
Sure.
Still awesome. But there was a disappointing moment when they played Bobby Jean, and it would be Clarence, that sax at the end, and it just, it didn't happen, and it just felt different. And I was like, this can't be it. At some point, I have to see Bruce in the E Street Band. So, but yeah, that was the first time, 92. And then, like I said, anytime he came to, if I can catch him in Buffalo or Toronto, I would, or actually went, I caught him a couple times in Cleveland. I think the first time, the reunion tour.
Okay.
And I think I saw the Magic tour in Cleveland too. So yeah.
So I always preface this with the amount of times you've seen him is not a fair barometer of what kind of fan you are, big fan you are, but have you counted how many times?
Well, my fandom for Bruce, it's like I've seen him 1,000 times.
Yes.
But I've only seen him probably 25 times.
Okay.
I was just too young to, obviously to see anything from Greetings, from Born to Run, from Darkness. I was way too young to see The River. Like, by the time I got into Bruce in '84, I guess he'd already had 5 albums out.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was a young Bruce fan who kind of missed a lot. I was just too young.
Well, and my problem was I lived in a small town in Louisiana, graduated high school in '77. So, and I only heard AM radio. In fact, I can remember, I was dating a girl named Jill, and we went to see, I can't remember who it was. It was some like Kenny Rogers or someone, some country artist. And she's like, man, I really like this music they're playing. And it was Darkness. And she ended up buying that album and really liking it. And I was just still, pop only, like, I discovered the Beach Boys and I was just loving everything about the Beach Boys. So, so I didn't really, my first show was 2002, The Rising. So, I have the same issue, right? Like I missed the reunion tour for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I moved in Dallas in '86. So there was a chance that, he could have, I could have seen him on some of these tours, so like Ghost of Tom Joad or some of these other things, but I just wasn't, I was a casual fan.
Yeah, you weren't there yet.
Yeah, so I missed all that chances, and now that I'm like, dang it, it's darn it. Oh,
yeah.
So that's why you try not to miss any that you can now, right?
Exactly. Like after '92, I did go to the Ghost of Tom Joad in Buffalo. So that would have been '95.
Yeah.
And that was great. That was great. I actually waited. I didn't bring a jacket. Stupid me, and it was freezing. And we came after the concert. We'd come out, and there was a kind of a kerfuffle, a bunch of people kind of waiting outside, and some security guards out there, and they were kind of trying to get people away. But there was talk that this is kind of the door that Bruce would come out of, and there was a Thrifty van there, kind of waiting. And Bruce had come out, and it was probably my closest encounter, because he had come out and he had a scarf on and all that, and he kind of stepped onto the platform of the Thrifty van, and I was kind of right there and kind of gave a wave, and he was off into the night. So, but yeah, I just wanted to become a student. I think in '89 I got Charles Cross's Backstreets.
Okay.
Do you have that book?
No.
And that book is it's an incredible book, because I would go back and he just logs like every single concert that Bruce has ever done.
Right.
And then, and for my birthdays, I would ask for albums or CDs. My mother would say, well, what do you want for your birthday? I said, okay, well, tell my aunt she can get me Greetings. Tell my grandmother she can get me this. So then I just started like kind of collecting, and then going back and reading Charles Cross's book, and hearing about, hey, there were these amazing concerts in '75, And in 1978, and I would, unfortunately, I guess I would buy these bootlegs.
Yeah.
I would buy these bootlegs and hear these amazing shows. So I just wanted to know all about it. And it was really the only music I kind of put my eggs all in one basket. It was like kind of falling in love with your high school sweetheart and never going off that path, So
you fell in love and you just stayed with it, right?
Yeah. Like I would dabble in other music that was kind of Bruce-like. John Cougar or U2 or Hootie and the Blowfish. I kind of enjoyed them too for a bit, but it was all Bruce all the time.
That's pretty cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned at the time that was your closest encounter. So have you had other encounters? Are there stories to tell?
Well, the big one would be that, we actually got to meet Bruce in person. And I don't know if you want to hear that story now.
Oh, please. Yes. I'd love it.
Yeah. So it's the anniversary is coming up February 16th, 2016. We went to go see the River Tour. It was me, myself, my brother, my uncle, the one who introduced me to.
Okay.
And he brought his two kids. They were, I think, probably 13 and 9 or 10 at the time.
Okay.
And so we're going to Buffalo. And just prior to going to the arena, we went to like, a little Buffalo dive and have a little bit of chicken wings like normal people do, I guess, before going to see a concert. And there was a couple sitting there and this lady had a picture on her t-shirt of her and Bruce.
Okay.
And I remember we had this conversation with her and she says, hey, I said, wow, you met Bruce? Yeah. And she told us a story. She goes, maybe you guys will too. Like, oh yeah. Thinking that there's no chance of that happening.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So we end up seating or getting the seats, my favorite seats. I'm going to put my secret out there. I love sitting in the first row behind the stage.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever sat there, Jesse, but
I have heard other people say that that's a really good place to see. Kind of like Max, you can kind of tell, and there's a good way to see that.
Yeah, it's an awesome seat, especially if you can't get close, right? You can't get into the pit and so on.
Yeah.
So we get there, and then kind of right from the get-go, Bruce was pretty enamored with my little cousins because we were pretty animated the entire 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned around a lot and kind of gave them attention quite a bit. So yeah, the concert was awesome. It was great to hear the River from beginning to end. Like, that was awesome for me. And then at the end of the show, he'd come down at the back of the stage. There's a couple stairs back there, and he comes out of the curtain and he kind of gives us a couple fist pumps and, kind of give us some attention. And he pointed to one of his managers there or security guards, and he pointed to him and then kind of pointed up to us and kind of gave us like the hang on, like, but at the time I really didn't know what was happening. I thought they were going to throw a couple picks up, or I really didn't get exactly what was going on. And within 2 minutes, the same guy who was down there, his security had come down the steps, gave us a tap on the shoulder and said, come with me. You're coming with us. How many are there of you? And I said, well, there's 5 of us. And we went down to the bowels of the arena through security and, seeing all the roadies pushing carts around and seeing that whole thing. And we leaned up against the wall and kind of, we're greeted very nicely by some of his people, and we waited. And I remember leaning against the wall, and I wasn't really facing where Bruce was coming, because I really had no idea where he was coming from. He was showering and doing his thing and my uncle was facing that way where Bruce was coming, and he says, "Hey, Joe, there's Bruce." And I turn around and I swear to God, I saw Jesus Christ. Like, I was like,
yeah, sure.
Holy shit. Like it's you, like, the guy, like that I've built a relationship with that he doesn't know of, but that I've built a relationship with for 35 years. Right. Like it was was an incredible moment for, a little kid's dream from, 9 years old to come true. So Bruce was great. He kind of chatted with us. He gave the kids a pick, and I blabbed something to him, Jesse, about like how much I don't know what I said to him. Just
Sure.
I was just like in awe, right? But it was a great moment, to finally meet your hero.
Why did do you think just the kids won him over?
It had to have been the kids. I don't think it was my good looks. It had to have been the kids. I just think that because he goes, wow, you guys really stuck it out for the 3 hours. They were, they were pretty pumped, and so yeah, it must have been the kids, and they had like white t-shirts on, so they kind of stood out and so on with the Bruce's image on the t-shirts and so on. So so yeah, it was an awesome moment. It was like 10 minutes. We chatted for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And Willie Nile was back there. I don't know if you know Willie. I think he's from Buffalo.
Yeah.
We met George Travis too, which I think Bruce is like a long time like tour director, and he kind of, before we met Bruce, he gave us like a kind of one of these passes or whatever. And
wow.
But yeah, so it was awesome. It was just a cool moment. It was a weird moment in a way that, like I met Bruce Springsteen, the guy.
Yes.
I was just aware that it was weird because there was no guitar slung over him. There was no sweat coming down him. There was no fist pumping. It was a regular guy. And you came to realize that Bruce Springsteen, the person, is different from Bruce Springsteen, the persona or the artist.
Yeah.
I know Steve Van Zandt talks a lot about, like on Twitter, he swears that you should not meet your hero, that,
right.
He's like because the artist is different from the art.
Right.
But he has said that, maybe Bruce is an anomaly like that.
The exception.
And, yeah. The exception. Right. So it was, I just remember it was a moment of, wow, you are two different people, right? And the person that I've made the connection with, and the person that helps me see who I am, and the person that helps me reveal the person that I am, or makes me a better person. It's basically like my relationship with him is almost like a relationship that when you fall in love with somebody, all of those things, right? Mm-hmm. Only they're a stranger to you, right? They're just basically a stranger, although you think you know them.
Yeah.
Right. Although you think you know them. So that's why he's so good. Right. That's why he's so good. When you find yourself in the characters and in the music, and and the music, it helps you through hard times and all those things. Right. It's just like falling in love with somebody that you fall in love with. It's kind of the same thing. So it was a pretty cool experience. I wish it would happen. I want it to happen again.
Yeah.
That's how selfish I am.
No, I get that. I had a theory that we saw a lot, like not only did he bring the kids up for Waiting on a Sunny Day, but like he signed during that river tour, he signed a kid's excuse for being late, and all these things. And I said, I think he and Patty are ready to be grandparents, and so I think that your story feeds my theory that, he's sitting there and he's, he sees these two kids just rocking it out, and he's like, that's pretty cool. Let's bring it on. So that's great.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. I think it wasn't too long after that he did sign that kid's note about being late to school. So I think he just, he wants to see those young faces in the crowd.
Yeah.
Instead of kind of always seeing like the older crowd. I think he likes seeing that, and he probably gets a kick out of it.
Yeah. Knowing that the next generation is safe. Like there will be, not that there's any doubt, but there is a whole generation raised. And, I've been lucky enough to have a couple of second generation fans on the podcast where, like when I asked the question, when did you first hear Bruce? They're like, you know, like a couple said, I was dancing to Born in the USA in my diapers, you know,
Yeah.
so this is all I've ever known.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
that's kind of cool that you have an uncle so close to your age. So I take it that your grandmother had
Yeah.
a lot of different kids at different ages, right? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, for
so yeah,
sure. Yeah, yeah. So
that's
like for some reason in Niagara Falls, Ontario, like um if you're 45 plus, you're either a Springsteen fan or a Tom Petty fan. It's you're split between the two, but there's just an enormous amount of Springsteen fans in that area of Southern Ontario. I don't know how the culture started there, but
yeah,
it just didn't. I think Bruce actually went. I think he's been down to the falls. I thought he went with Patty maybe on his honeymoon or something like that. So I think he's been down there
yeah,
at one time. But so yeah, that's really how it started, and it just for some reason it hit home and it never left me.
yeah,
I just and I was there weren't that many young kids at my age really like
right,
listening to Bruce. And it was interesting on Facebook when I did put the picture up when it did happen. I was getting like some of my elementary school friends were saying, "Oh my God, we are so happy for you," because they've known, they've been hearing about Bruce for so long, and
yes,
they're just like, you know,
yeah.
so
That's nice.
yeah.
Um, so you've kind of that's a big one, but are there other stories of shows that you want to share? It's okay if you don't, because that's a pretty damn good one right
Yeah,
there. Yeah,
everything else follows short.
yeah,
Well, I mean, it was kind of cool. I did see Clarence Clemens' last concert,
okay,
that happened to be in Buffalo.
yeah,
Bruce, that's at the time when Bruce was playing the albums from beginning to end,
right,
and he happened to do, I think that was Greetings that that night. And I believe if I'm correct that Danny did come out and do Sandy for that night, but he didn't stay the whole night. I think he might have just
yeah,
did that song, and because he obviously wasn't feeling well at the
right.
time, and so on. So that was a great highlight. So those were probably the two and that were pretty awesome.
Do you incorporate? I'm kind of jumping around, but do you
Yeah.
incorporate Bruce into your classroom?
Well, besides the posters that are on the wall,
Yes, yes,
hey, Mr. C, who is that? Who is that
yeah,
guy?
yeah,
I got to explain it. But last year, I usually try to find kind of some of the fun ones.
right,
The kids really got into Sleepy Joe's Cafe. I
yes,
remember cranking that and, Waiting on a Sunny Day, some of the fun ones.
sure.
So yeah. So every once in a while we'll slip it in there, but
That's pretty funny.
yeah.
Do they know that that's a way, like instead of bringing you an apple, which the cliche, like, hey, look, I found this Springsteen thing, Mr. C.
Well, they might say, "Hey, I saw him on TV," or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of something like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, so yeah, once in a while he'll pop up there. But
That's pretty interesting.
yeah.
I talked about this on Twitter that my mom, before COVID and a little bit now, but mostly before COVID, would, loved going to garage sales, and she, anytime she found a Bruce Springsteen CD or cassette, she bought it for me. And one of her friends says, "Well, he has it." And she says, "He told me it didn't matter." And I'm like, "I'm not. No, I love the idea that you got," like, she sent me a Human Touch cassette. I was like, "How cool is this?"
That's awesome.
Yeah. I always tell, I manage a contact center, and I always tell the new hires, I said, if you want to suck up, you know, come to my office and talk, Superman, comic books, or Bruce
Or
Springsteen. You
Bruce,
can't
yeah.
go wrong if you want to suck up to the boss. You could talk about Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it was funny. I would get people like, would call me and say, you probably know this, but Bruce is going to be on TV, or you probably know
Yeah,
this, but like, yeah, I
yeah,
do know. So like, it's interesting. All the people, the other people in your life that have been hearing this,
yes,
hearing Bruce, right? And my wife,
yeah,
oh, here we go with the Bruce again, and my, and my mom, she's kind of become a fan because they just, I mean, you've, you've played it so much that they've heard
right.
it throughout the house. And I'm like, the song? She's like, Joe, you like,
You,
come on, you've been blasting this music like for years. Of course we
trust
know the
me.
song or whatever. So it's just interesting kind of
Mhm.
the other people in your life that uh hear the
Well,
things.
I could go. Bruce doesn't do this, but if he did, where he offered, where you could pay for a backstage pass, like one of those, like some artists have this. If I had $1 for every time one of my guests said, yeah, my wife's just happy I'm talking to someone else besides her about Bruce, I could get that package.
Yeah,
So yeah, I know that feeling. Are the How about the three little ones? Are your kids fans?
my little one, the 3-year-old,
Yeah.
has really it's it's interesting. It's really become a problem. He is just enamored with everything all Bruce. I don't know. It started. I played one song for him, and it was Sleepy Joe's Cafe, and that was like maybe a year ago or so. And now he will not stop. He will not. He gets through all the books, and he'll watch videos, and he has a little guitar, and he kind of has all the moves down.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could play a song for 3 seconds, and he would know it.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, like I play Backstreets. He's like, oh, it's Backstreets, or he loves listening to the Detroit medley.
Hmm.
He'll listen to that, and on and on. Like, but for the most part, like my other kids, they'll hear stuff from Letter to You, and hey,
Yeah.
Dad, I really like If I Were a Priest or whatever. But
Yeah.
really, the youngest one, who's named after me,
Hmm.
has just I don't know. He's just taken a liking, and it's pretty cool to see. But
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with that. But he absolutely adores him. Like,
Hmm.
it's it's crazy. Well, I think you did see on Twitter. I did post like him singing Born to Run, like
Yes. Yes, I did. Yes.
and so that was
He's
kind of cool.
really good.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, he just
Yeah.
he studies them. He
Hmm.
studies them, and then he just doesn't get sick of it. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of neat to
Now,
kind of see.
is your lovely bride rolling her eyes and being a
Oh,
little worried?
she is a little, like, we get enough of the Bruce, right? Enough of the Bruce. We'll, like Jesse, like sometimes we'll consequence him by saying, listen, I'm going to take your Bruce book away, and he'll have a temper tantrum. He'll flip out like that. I'm
Yeah.
taking something away that's Bruce. I'm like, oh my God, this has really, really gotten a hand. But yeah, there's nothing I've done now. Now it's just basically it's him
Yeah.
kind of, he's taken over. But so it's kind of fun. But the way he feels about him, and the way he's just enamored about him, like, it would, I don't know, it's gonna be tough. Like, I feel bad because he says, like, Daddy, when we go into the Bruce concert, or
Yeah.
he kind of thinks that Bruce is like a real person, like, that he can
Yeah.
go visit. Like,
Right.
today he went to the potty, and it's, hey, Daddy, Bruce will be happy. Bruce will be proud of me. I'm like, well,
I
Dad's
love
proud of
this.
you. Like,
Yes,
so
your
like,
dad's proud of you.
yeah, he thinks he's like an uncle. Like, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, like, my wife was like, you brought this Bruce thing. I'm like, that's all I did was play a song for him.
That's all I did.
So
Oh, so
it's really wild.
I told, there's an episode years ago. I had read this when Bruce was doing the book signings, that there was a column said what I would have told Bruce if I could have. And she talked about that her daughter, Juniper, was born premature. And her husband would play Bruce Springsteen music and read Harry Potter to her in the incubator, in the
wow.
needle air. And so, so she grew up with that. And they ended up writing a book about it. That's a really good book, Juniper, and the girl born too soon, I believe it. And I know right now, J.K. Rowling is getting a little bit of crap, and I'm not getting into the political end of it, but when J.K. Rowling heard the story about the little girl, she sent the family a whole collection of the Harry Potter books and said to Juniper, the girl who lived, which, Harry Potter, the boy who lived. And so, but anyway, so, the book signing, you only get a few seconds, and they get a picture with Juniper and her mom and everything. And so, but the reason I'm telling the story is they asked her, well, Juniper, are you sad that you didn't get to talk to Bruce? And she goes, he knows me. He wrote me all those songs.
Wow. That's awesome. That's
so,
awesome.
that's your son's gonna be like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Uncle Bruce. Yeah, he wrote me all these songs.
Well, he's gonna inherit a lot of stuff. I'll tell you that. I have so much stuff, and Daddy, is that mine? Yep. You can have that, buddy. Like, you can have everything that I got here. But yeah.
So it was. My mom is 80, and so she is starting to. She's in good health. She still lives by herself, but she is starting to, a little bit of the Sopranos mom. You want this lamp? You want this? Olivia Soprano.
Yeah.
We good lamps wise, mom. But she has done a lot of things, and there's, not much I want. And someone made a discussion about, oh, well, that'd be interesting. And my mom said, nope, Jesse Wayne has all the albums. And I went, yes, all the vinyl was mine. I want that. Awesome. So that's great. So your other two will might want other things, but the youngest, nope, anything Bruce is mine.
He's got it.
I get it. That's great.
He's got it, definitely. So
yeah.
But I know you got to meet him, right? Was that at a book signing?
It was at a book signing. It was, for 6 or 7 seconds, but it was, I got to shake his hand. I got my picture taken with him, and I got to tell him nothing out unique.
So it's such a hard thing for someone to be such a big part of your life.
Yeah.
And not meet them.
Yeah.
Right? And not say, hey, you've been a big part of my life,
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, man, before I met him, or, I was like, I can't believe I may not ever meet this guy.
Right.
It'd be kind of sad, that this dream of mine, either I go, or Bruce goes before, or I go, that I'm never going to meet him,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a quote, Bruce saying something like, what do you do if your dreams don't come true?
Yeah.
And that kind of made sense to me. It says, and what do you do if they do come true? What does that mean? What if you do? And it's kind of interesting, because my dream did come true, and there was this elation, and at the same time, I remember the next day there was kind of this, there was kind of this downer moment, because now it happened.
Yes.
Your dream has happened. So now what?
Yeah.
So it was interesting that, and it had, he was great and everything, and it was awesome. And I told him whatever I had to tell him, and he kind of nodded his head, he's basically heard it who knows how many times from other people, right? But there was this kind of I don't know if you kind of feel the same way sometimes, that heightened feeling at a Springsteen concert, and then the next day where you're like, oh, there was that little bit of a downer where you wish, okay, no wonder people go and just chase him all over the place.
Yeah, you chase that high again.
That high is just, it's incredible. And you're like, oh man, I wish I could, go to Italy or go,
Yeah.
I just couldn't go, I can't just go and
Yeah.
chase them all over the place. Right. Like some people can. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I told the story that at the, I was lucky enough, Linda supported Chris and I going to see Bruce it was the second half of the River Tour at Met Stadium, there in Jersey. And he had done that. He was doing 2 nights, going to Chicago, and then coming back for a third night. And so we were there, and it was a 4-hour show. And it was the first time, and I've seen him 16 times, not counting Broadway. And it was the first time at the end of the concert I was done. Like it was the show where the guy asked his girlfriend to marry him during Jersey Girl, and so Bruce got him on stage, give him a little dance. And they played Jersey Girl, and they played Fireworks, and it was a 4-hour show. And Chris and I looked over, and it's like, I'm good. Like, like normally it's like, one more, man, could I just get one more song? And that one it was like I'd gone to the all you could eat buffet, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Now the next morning I was ready for another show, but at that night going home, I was like, that was perfect. I would not have changed the thing. So yeah, it is something amazing.
It is. Yeah. It is. It is. What it does to your spirit and what it does to your soul, as Bruce talks about, like it is incredible. And people's like, I remember I was saying, okay, well, I'm going to the show and then I'm going the next day. Like, why are you going? It's, people say it's the same show. It's not the same show. And, and you can't talk to Bruce, talk about Bruce to non-Bruce people, because you might as well speaking another language, and I even remember trying to get people onto Bruce. I think I stopped that like years ago. It's like you either get it or you feel it, or you kind of don't. And I'd be like, you don't hear this? Like, you don't know? Like, what are you it's like someone who knows art, and you look at it, you're like, well, it's just a bunch of freaking dots. What are you talking about? Right? Like, so when it hits you, and there's no feeling like it. It's
I agree with you, Joe. And it's that I remember I had a boss, and they were at a dinner party, and he was saying, and this guy I work with has seen Bruce like 17 times. Like, what? I've never seen any artist 17 times. I can't imagine doing that. And they just thought that, and I tried to explain to him, 17's low, for this thing.
Pretty much.
So, and you try to explain, and that, well, like, my buddy Sam is a huge Dylan fan, and he's seen Dylan probably 100 times. He can't even count. And so we went to lunch today, and he was talking about that Dylan's announced the new tour, and he's going to do Irving, Texas, right outside of Dallas. He's doing 2 shows in San Antonio, 1 in Austin, 1 in Shreveport, 1 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and 1 in Oklahoma City. And he said that years ago he would have gone to all of them, and now then he's just going to probably do the 1 outside Dallas and the 2 in Oklahoma. Because I guess that the Tulsa has the Bob Dylan Center located in it.
Okay.
Why? Well, because the billionaire that donated the money for the building lives in Tulsa, so that's why they have it there. Like, okay, there is no connection to Dylan in Tulsa, none whatsoever. But he said because Dylan lately has been doing like the same set list. It's the same one. And the same thing. Like, I know, like, I wouldn't go to, I went to James Taylor and Jackson Brown earlier this year, or late last year, and it was a great show, but I wouldn't go to multiple shows because I know it's the same set list. but
Yeah.
as you and I know, you never know what you're going to get with Bruce. And
No.
even on the river tour where he was doing the river, I like, I just wanted to get that feeling again, that
Yeah.
high.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there albums or songs besides Sleepy Joe Cafe that speak to you or your family?
Well, some of the fun ones, right? The ones that you don't have to dig too deep into, the
Yeah.
glory days, the dancing in the darks, those kind of fun ones,
Yeah.
So those are probably maybe some of the easier ones to, to get into. It was interesting. I enjoy working out whenever I get 20 minutes or 30 minutes in the basement, and my wife's like, "Oh, I really like that one song," because that's what I'll play. And it was
Yeah.
it's "Let's Be Friends." I don't know if you remember that,
Sure.
from I think The Rising.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, I really like that song." So every once in a while, when I get a chance, hey, listen to this way. It'll make her happy. But yeah, so those are some of the fun ones that
Yeah.
I'll kind of play
Yeah.
to kind of keep people interested. But those wouldn't be my my go-tos
Okay.
for myself.
What are a couple that mean a lot to you personally?
Well, there's a few I probably I can't even get through without tearing up. I lost my dad when I was 31. and 47 now. But there's
Okay.
like My Father's House. There's the one part of the song when the character gets to the gates.
Yeah.
And it says, "I'm sorry, son. Sorry, yeah. No one by that name lives here anymore." That gets to me. My dad is actually in a wall, like in a mausoleum, and the song "The Wall." If your eyes could cut through that black stone, will they recognize me? Like a couple of things I can't,
wow.
I can't
Sure.
even to get through. But I mean, for me, the Darkness, it's probably Darkness album's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
I still think that Badlands is probably at least for me, probably the best live song at a Springsteen concert.
Sure.
Even for maybe a casual fan to witness that and to hear that, it just seems like one of the most powerful live songs.
Yeah.
That you can hear. I know Born to Run would be up there too when the lights come up and all that too, but
Yeah.
but it's hard. I mean, between Born to Run and Darkness and The River, I mean, they're amazing. Those albums are.
Yeah. Are you chasing anything? Is there songs that you haven't, excluding Western Star's Letter to You, are there songs that you wish you could hear live that you haven't got to hear yet?
I thought about that. I'm like, I think Jesse's going to ask this question. I've thought about this for a bit, and I'm not sure. I think I've heard everything that I've really wanted to hear. Okay. All the big ones. I remember the first time I got to hear Trapped in Toronto. That was huge for me. And I've heard Something in the Night and all the big ones. Maybe something like Restless Nights from Tracks, or
okay.
It'd be great to hear Prove It All Night with that guitar intro.
Sure.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I can't really pinpoint, something that I'd be chasing. I mean, for me, it'd be great to hear particular albums, from start to finish. That'd be kind of cool. But everything's gravy from here. I'm not chasing anything.
Yeah, I get it.
I just want to be a part of it again.
Yeah, I know.
I just want to be a part of it. I want to feel that stress again about having to buy tickets.
Yes.
When that stress comes, and where am I going to sit and that. So to answer your question, I'm not really chasing anything.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Good.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I should have asked you, Joe, that I haven't?
No, I think we got it all here. I think I was, I told my story. Bruce is, his music had a huge impact on my life, and it started pretty early. Yeah. And that, that was really the message I want to get across. He was been a big part of my life. And it was great, to have finally after having a 35-year, or 30-year relationship with somebody, to finally say, hey, just thanks, thanks for that. And it is sad. I know there's a few people on Twitter, like, I've seen the picture of me in the group with Bruce, and they said, hey man, I'm jealous. And, I just wish everybody could have a particular dream come true. Cause it's, especially their Bruce dream. Cause, it was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. This is
awesome.
great. And it's been great visiting with you. I love visiting with you. This is just amazing. All right. But before I get you out of here, I got to talk to the Mary question. So if you are a member of the PTA or the Dad's Club, and you're listening to this because, you're supporting Mr. C, teacher, or you're a friend of Joe's, I end every episode with the Mary question. Jay Armstrong is a retired honors English teacher, Philadelphia area. He just recently published a book, Bedtime Stories for the Living. I recommend it highly. But every year, his seniors would take Thunder Road and treat it like a epic poem. They'd go through all the lyrics. They would talk about the imagery Bruce did. They talk about the themes of the poem. They compare it to Robert Frost and other poetry. And at the end of the 2 days, he would ask the class, does Mary get in the car? So Joe, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is yes. And the way I see it, that album is Born to Run is very cinematic. Most of those songs are very cinematic. So if I were a cinematographer, which I'm not, the way I see it and the way I picture it is the character's in the car. He looks over to Mary and kind of puts his hand out, and she goes back inside.
Okay.
Pan to the character. He's got his kind of head down, maybe on the wheel. And we hear the screen door slam, and she's come out with her jacket, and she hops in the car. I don't know if it's Bruce or the character, puts it in park, and off they go in the sunset. And that's the way I see it. You got to believe. You got to believe that there's something better. Yeah,
that's perfect. That's perfect. I love that. I could see the movie ending that way, and that's great. If someone wants to reach you, or if they want to see videos of your adorable son doing his Bruce impersonation, what's the best way?
Yeah, I'm at Twitter at OneBossFan.
Okay.
So that's how you can get at my Twitter handle for a little bit of sports, a lot of Bruce stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can search Joe Carbonara, but yeah.
What's your favorite sport? Or are you a fan of all of them?
I'm a soccer guy. I started pretty early because of my dad. Leaf fan, obviously Toronto Maple Leaf fan.
Yeah. What's your team? What's your team do you follow?
In hockey?
No, in soccer.
In soccer, well, there's a team in Italy. I enjoy following the league there in Italy.
Okay.
So football, I love the Niners. That kind of started pretty early because my dad said, hey, I think there's an Italian on the team named Joe Montana. So, okay, well, we got to follow him.
We got to follow him. There we go.
So that's how that started. So yeah, sports has been a big part of my life. Is pretty much what kind of got me through school. But yeah, so.
Very nice. Very cool. Joe, this was a blast. Thank you so much for taking time to visit with me. This was a joy. I hope you had fun.
It was awesome. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure to talk to Bruce, and it's a pleasure to meet you too. It was great. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. All right, listener, you stay safe. Go get vaccinated. Go get boosted. Let's remember to be diligent as we wear our mask, we wash our hands, and let's all be good to each other as we get through this horrible time, because that's the only way we're going to get through it. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, listeners, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Bruce Springsteen Live provides fans with an intimate look into Springsteen's creative process. The Bruce Springsteen Live exhibit opens at the Woody Guthrie Center on Saturday, April 16th running through Sunday, September 25th. The exhibit will feature iconic artifacts, live performance footage, instruments, stage costumes, exclusive interviews, concert posters, and photography, as well as unique interactive displays to immerse fans in Bruce Springsteen and the band's creative process. More information can be found at woodyguthrieCenter.org. Please let them know that Set Listing Bruce sent you there, and I'll see you in Tulsa. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.